And next we have the Ways and Means Committee report on that. Committee is chaired by Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam President. Ways and Means will bring forward 17 items for your consideration and approval this morning. The first item is the passage of an ordinance amending Appendix H of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances relating to Minneapolis cable communication franchises. It adds a new Chapter 2, granting a cable franchise to CenturyLink. It adopts the findings of fact and recommendations as prepared by the city attorney.
Councilmember Quincy had a busy week in the Ways and Means Committee. So he has moved the entire report. And Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I have a comment on item number 1.
Okay, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. Item number 1 is Minneapolis's consideration of adding, granting a cable franchise to CenturyLink. And this has been an item that has been on our docket for several months actually now, going through multiple public hearings. And let me just say, I think this is a really big deal. It's a big deal that we have an entrant who is willing to explore coming into the market in Minneapolis and in many other cities as well. I know there are discussions happening that I hear from my colleagues in other cities. And I regret to say I'm not going to be able to support this cable franchise grant today. And I wanted to go through some of my reasons for that. Again, I think that this is really just a tremendous moment in time. We have had one cable franchise provider in the city of Minneapolis for almost 40 years. And just let me repeat that. For almost 40 years, we have not had competition in the market. And as a resident, I'm not happy about that. I think competition in the market is needed. It's critical. It helps motivate the market. It helps motivate better prices for our businesses and for our residents, and hopefully better service as well. But again, because this is such a big moment, I think when we have the mechanism through a franchise agreement that sets the course for the future, I think we need to get that mechanism right, and I'm not confident that we have done that. We have had some presentation from CenturyLink about how they hope to serve the public and how they hope to start entering the market. They have talked about in the public hearing process that they believe that they could serve, I believe, 30% of the city, and I may be saying that percentage a little bit incorrectly, but 30% within the first 2 years, and that they have goals for serving every ward. And I will say, in a best case scenario, we hope that CenturyLink would do really well, or another entrant in the market would do really well, and that they would hit their business goals and they would be able to continue to march forward and hopefully in the end serve our entire city. But the importance of regulation and of a franchise agreement is that not that we're going to direct all the business activities of an operation, but that if things don't go the way that we hope, if things don't happen in the way that we think serves the goals of the city of Minneapolis, that we have a mechanism for enforcement. And that's where I am concerned that we do not have a mechanism of enforcement that is usable, that will be able to help guide our goals. And in the end, I think that competition by itself is not enough. I think it is very important, but I think it's not enough. And I guess I would rely also on the goals that I think you can interpret from the state law of our state, which guide franchises to have a goal of serving all residents in a municipality. And they have this 5-year build-out goal. We've had a lot of discussion in our committee, and we know, I think we have not yet seen the legal challenge to that, but maybe that's coming in the future. We have seen how the evidence of how difficult it is for entrants in the market to meet that build-out goal. And so I'm not here to opine on what's the future of Minnesota law, but I will talk about, I think that actually is an important goal. And that goal of serving all residents should be reflected also somehow in our franchise agreement mechanism. In our franchise agreement mechanism, there were a couple things, and I'm just going to point to them specifically, that were the items that gave me grave pause for concern and why I'm not able to support this agreement today. The first item was talking about the build out that is going to be required as part of our franchise agreement. And as I mentioned before, CenturyLink has spoken in the public hearing process about its desire and ability to build out to a 30% goal. However, what we're seeing as the initial minimum build-out commitment in the franchise agreement is 15% of the city over 2 years. I'll just say quite honestly, that is very concerning to me. It raises the question to me about whether that is a reasonable build-out requirement when the build-out requirement is half what the entrant into the market has said that they would be able to provide. Again, this says, what is our ability to have an enforcement mechanism should things not go the way that we hope? A second item that is probably the most concerning to me is the item that talks about what's the additional build-out requirement based on market success. And I do think that this was a talking about what's the mechanism for making sure that we're in tune to the business needs of the operator, and how, they need to make some money to continue to build out the system. And this franchise agreement, I think, did incorporate those concepts. However, the mechanism, I think, has a bar that is so high that I cannot see the city of Minneapolis ever being able to utilize that mechanism. So today, as an example, Comcast has penetration in the market of, I think the range is between 40 and 45%. I'm not sure what time frame that covers, but that was what was in our findings of fact that you can see before us today. In the franchise agreement, the city of Minneapolis does not have any mechanism to ask for further build out until CenturyLink meets a penetration rate of 27.5%. And just let me say that again, 27.5%. This would be more than half, taking more than half of the customers now served by Comcast. And I'll just say it sounds to me like that is an extremely high bar. I question if that's a reachable bar. And if there's not a mechanism to ensure build out, then why do we have the franchise agreement? I'm out of time. I did have one last comment that was about, do you want me to just finish off now? Thank you. The last thing I'll just say is, again, the franchise agreement is not, is where we go if we have to have an enforcement mechanism. And if that enforcement mechanism is not in place, then if things do not go the way we hope, we're stuck with what we have in that franchise agreement. We hope we never have to use it as an enforcement mechanism, but there you are. We are the first city in the state of Minnesota to be at this point in contemplating a franchise agreement. What we do undoubtedly will impact communities around the state and their ability to negotiate franchise agreements that allow them to have enforceable mechanisms to reach the goals that hopefully will be served by a franchise, which is increasing competition and, as I have said, having a mechanism, having a pathway to serve all residents. I think we do a disservice if this is the agreement to our communities around the state of Minnesota if this is the agreement that we go with today. Thank you.
Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the comments that Councilmember Glidden has made in today's meeting, as well as all the previous public hearings that we've had on this topic. So we really did bring a lot of our concerns to the table. I wanted to compliment, of course, our city attorney's office, as well as our outside counsel that was engaged on this negotiation. It is a unique opportunity, I believe, for the city to lead many of these other communities along the way to achieve greater competition. And that to achieve that greater competition, we're going to have to be able to take the first leap. And that's a big step for the city of Minneapolis. I agree that there is a concern about the build-out requirements within the 5-year time frame, as well as with the state law issue. But there's also a federal ruling that kind of directs and probably preempts state law on this issue, but that is to be settled by the courts later. I would expect a legal suit on, no matter what we do today, on one side or the other. Either we're creating too great a barrier for entry, or we're creating something that's in conflict with state law on 5-year build-out. I'm pleased that in the negotiation of this franchise agreement, that we did achieve first of all, a 5-year term, which allows us an opportunity for further review. I also believe we achieved the opportunity to be indemnified from that action should a lawsuit arise, and a commitment to diverse programming. The creation of the Minneapolis Mosaic, which provides 9 channels in high def that'll provide access to the city in a nice program guide. I think we've addressed some of the build-out concerns, especially with the opportunity to accelerate build-out based on results. As they're achieving business goals, we'll be able to monitor that on a quarterly basis beginning in January. So monitoring that progress as they're achieving their goal of at least 30% build-out, but as Councilmember Glidden pointed out, that's not achievable within the negotiation of the franchise agreement as something that we're able to defend. So that's why the 15% is in there as opposed to the 30%, but I think that is their goal, and that's something our communications office and the city's attorney's office will be monitoring, as I said, on a quarterly basis beginning in January. So I think this provides the unique opportunity for competition that's in the best interest of our citizens. It encourages a significant investment of millions of dollars in the city, especially for our communications workers who are affiliated with CenturyLink and are very supportive of this action. So I would encourage the council to support this direction. So approval is what I'm seeking. Thank you.
Councilmember Frey.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm also very supportive of this initiative, and I just wanted to comment on a couple of issues. A lot of people have talked about, well, we're not requiring CenturyLink to build out the entire city all at once, and I think there's a very good reason for that. When Comcast initially came to the market, they were required to do an entire 100% full city build out. And in exchange, the city had the ability to grant what was, for all intents and purposes, a monopoly. Now we no longer have that ability because Comcast occupies the entire field. If CenturyLink is to come in and they were required to have a full build out, we couldn't give them in exchange that monopoly that we previously gave Comcast. Rather, every single customer that CenturyLink would acquire would have to be siphoned off of already existing providers, and that is a difficulty. And in terms of barriers to entry, we have had barriers to entry, I would say, for the entirety of the period that Comcast has existed so far. Because they've occupied this entire field, it's been almost impossible for another provider to get in there. And I think after 40 or 50 years of having the exact same results, I think it's time to try something different to increase competition.
Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Madam President. The concerns that were shared by Council Vice President Glidden, are some concerns that I have, but I have to say that, relative to other franchise agreements, this franchise agreement is fairly short. I mean, it's a 5-year franchise agreement, and from that time period, we can, go back and revisit the franchise agreement. Additionally, Councilmember Quincy mentioned that there's going to be monitoring of these build-out requirements, and we're going to return to that. I believe it's quarterly, so it's going to give us a chance to really take a look at what they're doing. And I think that 15% build-out requirements that they came to, I think that's the floor. I mean, I really think that with CenturyLink and other corporate entities or business entities, I mean, it's in their best interest to do everything they can to go higher and make more money. I mean, the object of the game is to make a lot of money, and I'm confident that that's what they're going to try to do. And so, when I look at this, I mean, I think that if they're not exceeding their requirements, I mean, I think at some point, I mean, it will cause them to be embarrassed, really. And so I think that's the important part about this. I mean, when you look at this, I mean, competition is really good for the marketplace. And I look at what they're about to embark on, and it's a big task. But I mean, I certainly wish them well in terms of doing what they're doing, and I support this. I think that it's good for the marketplace. I got a chance to actually look at. I guess what at the time, and probably still is, I mean, they're trade secrets in terms of, the market penetration or the coverage that they'll have in each of the wards. And, I'm fairly satisfied with what I saw in terms of, what they're going to do or what they're going to try to tackle. And so, with that, I mean, I'm supportive of this. I urge other council members to be supportive as well.
Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I share some of the concerns that have been expressed as well. I think when we were told, hey, it's going to be a 30% rollout, and then it dropped down to 15%, felt kind of like a bait and switch. At the same time, though, I think that this is going to increase competition. We are going to see lower costing cable service for our residents, and that's going to be a great thing, being able to save residents some money. We go from a monopoly ultimately to really a duopoly on this, and my hope is that we actually see more than just CenturyLink in the marketplace. We actually see some other potential vendors stepping up and stepping forward. And actually that is a way to look at this too, the 15% requirements, is that if we have it, a precedent in place that sets a lower bar for what it takes to enter the market, it just makes it easier for the smaller guys to come into the market as well and increase the competition beyond what we've even seen. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if CenturyLink doesn't operate in good faith, and doesn't do a good job at getting outcomes within our city that are equitable, and ultimately providing the competition we're seeking, we're going to have this before us in 5 years. You're obviously making a very big investment to do this, and so it's in your interest as well to do a very good job with it. And, it's not going to benefit me personally because I already cut the cord. I'm on Netflix, and I get the HD TV antenna, which I personally am very happy about that decision. I would strongly encourage you to please continue investing as much as you can in rolling out fiber optic internet service across the city. I encourage all vendors and ISPs to do that. I think that's really the wave of the future here. And that's what a lot of people are going to do, especially as you see a lot of these video services on the top layer, HBO Go, and I think hopefully ESPN will follow suit soon, and we'll have essentially a de facto a la carte cable service where individuals can really get the programming that they want through high-speed internet along with all the economic benefits that come with it. So I am supportive of this today. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the Ways and Means report? Seeing as we may have a divided vote, I think I'll have clerk call the roll on item 1, and then we'll have the rest of the report. On item 1.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Cano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
No.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes and 1 nay.
That item is adopted. Then on the rest of the Ways and Means